So you've been enjoying your conversations that you've been having, so that we won't be here all night. I'd like to go ahead and get us started again. Thank you so much for coming. If you want to move your chairs closer and crowd around somebody else's table, you're welcome to, those of you that are way in the back. We'll try and make sure we speak loud enough for you to hear back there, but if it's hard to hear, there's more spaces there at that table, and there's a few spaces up here at some of these others where you can get a little closer if you need to. One thing that I kept getting asked as I was floating around the room was what's in the vegan butter. And you do have, if you have a little booklet with recipes in it, you have the vegan recipe in there. It comes from Melanie McDonald. If you go online and you type in virtual vegan, that is her website. It's probably on here on the recipe. Yeah, it is on the end of the recipe. It's on there. Her recipes are just top-notch, and the flavor is always good. She experiments and experiments and experiments until she gets it where she likes it, and then she'll publish one of her recipes online. And that's where I got the vegan butter today. Coconut oil, almond flour, plant milk. I used cashew because that's what we use at our house. Nutritional yeast, salt, 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, a pinch of turmeric to give it a little bit of yellow color, or if you want it yellower. And then it asks for a neutral tasting liquid oil, and I used olive oil for mine. Or not olive oil, excuse me, avocado oil, because I like avocado oil when I don't want a flavor. Olive oil, no matter which one I've used, it always seems like I can still tell it's olive oil. So I tend to use avocado when I want something that's not. Like I said, all the recipes are in here. You should have a pen in there too, and you may want to turn one of those recipes over and scribble yourself some notes when Monica gets going, because she's going to have all kinds of tips to tell you about sourdough. What I want to ask you, the one side is all recipes. The other side is nutritional information. There's a beginner's guide to plant-based diets. There's an egg substitute. We did a whole class on egg substitutes. And we tried them all, experimented with them all to see how they worked. So I gave you the guidelines. If you went to that class, you've already got them, but those of you who worked at that class, now you have them as well. The vegan plate is in there. I don't know how many of you went to school. Most of you, except maybe Harold and Werner, are younger than I am. We used to have the food pyramid. Now they do My Plate, and they divide the plate into sections. But they do, on their site, have information for vegan My Plate, and a vegetarian one too, if you're looking for that one. So I've printed that one out for you. From Forks Over Knives, which is another place that I get lots of recipes from, and has umpteen informational things. This is their one for the spring guide to fruits and vegetables, what'll be coming out soon, so you know what's available. There's a thing in here from the U.S. Food and Drug on how to read a label, because labels can be tricky if you don't know what you're looking for, especially when it comes to total sugars and added sugars. If you're watching for your carbs, those are your places you want to be keeping an eye on. The best way to cook vegetables is to steam them, and so you have a sheet that has the steaming times for different vegetables to steam them. There's a page in here on how to reduce salt intake, which I'm going to give to my husband. Yeah, it doesn't really help. I tell him about all these neat things. I read an article, actually came out of Forks Over Knives, about how high salt intake leads to diabetes. Not that it has stopped me any at all. Then this little newsletter that I get from Judy Doherty. She is a dietitian who has her own website. This is just a little good information. And then this last one that's in that section is also from Forks Over Knives. It's 7 things that happen when you stop eating meat. inflammation being a big one. But I was not raised a vegetarian. I'm still sometimes not a vegetarian because I'm married to a carnivore. But I try.
The cow eats meat,
Yeah, I know, the cow eats the grass. I did a class last year on vegetarian burgers. And I had some gentleman that had some smart comment about, yeah, the cow eats the grass, and that's how I get mine. You know, and at first I was a little ticked that he kind of got smarty on my comments on there, and then I thought, hey, he put it back up to the top of the list and more people saw it, so what? Whatever works. Obviously, most of you saw it off of one particular site, which I thought was fantastic. I have never looked at my site and saw 40 comments on there and gone, but that was fantastic. I also, since I had to go to the library the other day, checked out their cookbook section. They have a huge section on cookbooks. An amazing amount on both vegetarian and vegan, which really surprised me. This one isn't one of the ones that we're giving away because this is the library's, and they'd be really upset if I did. But it's called Plant-Based on a Budget, and it's by Tony Okamoto. There are some really nice recipes in here, simple recipes. And we do have some sourdough cookbooks that we're going to give away tonight. But I found this one at the library as well, and I really, really like it. It's called Homemade Sourdough, and it's by Jane Mason. So if you know, I don't know about you, but I buy a cookbook and I use a half a dozen, maybe a dozen recipes out of it, and otherwise the book just sits on the shelf. So libraries are always good resources. The internet anymore is a fantastic resource for recipes. But I'm not the star of the show tonight, and Monica doesn't like to be the star of the show, but she's going to be the star of the show. But before she starts, I would like to know, what other things would you like to learn about? Because that's how I decide what the next class is going to be the next month. Anything that you, in particular, that you want to know how to do? Yes.
Sometimes it's hard to find things in stores, and I don't know if there's, you know, if you, where you get all the things. We either go to the internet or we go local, but it's not
Local does
something.
not always work for some of the odd things
Yeah.
that you see in vegetarian recipes or vegan recipes. That's why I like the two cookbooks that we're giving away tonight, Plant View and 8 something. What is that next to it? The Vegan 8. Keeping with the theme of,
I found unusual spices on Amazon.
yeah, Amazon is always good. Amazon's good for just about anything.
Amazon.
Unless, of course, you don't like Amazon. This one is called the Vegan 8, and it's called the Vegan 8 because it has, most of the recipes are 8 ingredients or less. And that's counting things like salt or things that you would normally put in a recipe anyway. Keeping with the theme of trying to come up with simple recipes. I liked this one.
Was he saying like a resource?
Yeah, he's looking for resources for odd things.
People might need
Always check health food sections in a store, and the Oriental section in stores sometimes have odd things that you don't find anywhere else.
Okay.
And also the Hispanic section sometimes has things that you don't find anywhere else.
I go into like Winco, and Winco has bulk foods, and that's kind of nice. They don't have everything, but that's...
They do have a lot. I did a lot of shopping. In fact, what was really neat was Harold and Verna's, granola recipe that I did up for them, their breakfast recipe. Everything comes from Winco's bulk. I discovered as I was going along, going, oh, look, they've got pecan pieces, and they've got, and I'm going, oh, Harold just goes down going, I want this. And he throws it all together, and that's breakfast.
I didn't know you were watching me.
I wasn't, but as I went looking for things, I discovered that I didn't have to sit at home and break my walnuts into little bitty pieces. They already had them broken little bitty pieces.
And they're usually cheaper than the whole ones.
Yeah, and they're cheaper than the whole ones, that's right. So most of the recipes that I gave you tonight, except for the agar, and that I have had to get through Amazon. It's been, the problem was this last time I couldn't find flakes. Brolem's has agar, ooh, see, I don't know Brolem's very well
See,
because it's all the way over.
that would be good for something, if you could put together
A resource
a
list?
resource reference kind of thing.
So Brolem's has, in bulk, they have a whole bunch. You can get a little bit, you can get ground cardamom. They have some stuff that if you just need a little bit, you can put it in a bag, and it's, instead of $16 an ounce, you're only paying $10.
Is that one specific Brolem's or do all of them have that?
I've only been to the one out in Hammond.
It's like one in town.
Yeah, but they have some cool, like, I know they have agar out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do they have the flakes?
I wasn't looking for flakes, but I don't have them, so I'm not sure, but it comes from Frontier.
Okay, if it comes from Frontier, then they might,
Yeah, I need to maybe ask them
if they would carry it, yeah.
I don't know if Natural Grocers would be.
Natural Grocers?
Go-to for autumn things.
They are, where they're always after I've hit all the grocery stores in town, except Brolem's because it's all the way across town from me. That's where I usually end up going. Although, like I said, everybody was out of vegan mayonnaise yesterday.
So for odd spices and really fresh herbs, there's red clover, which is a tiny little shop off of, what is that?
Woodruff and 17th.
Yeah, Woodruff and 17th. And if she doesn't have it, she will order it for you.
What's the name of the place?
Red clover.
Red Clover.
Okay, I know that intersection.
Here's a card.
Which corner?
Yeah.
It is on the northeast corner. So there's a tire shop and
Right.
there's a little
You get
strip
like a
mall,
counter.
and it's in that little strip mall.
Okay, I know where the tire shop is, okay.
And
I can find, I'm a landmark driver. Tell me where something's next to something else and I can probably find it. Yes,
One last thing. On T, what is it, texture?
textured vegetable protein?
Vegetable.
TVP.
Okay. Is there any out there that tastes good?
That's a good question.
If you flavor it.
Kim, any of those ones that we have in there that you brought when you downsized, particularly good?
They basically all taste the same, you just have to add your own.
It's kind of like tofu. If you want flavor, you add the flavor in.
Yeah.
I took some of the beef flavored and my son-in-law, who thinks a vegetable is poison, I used it in chili and he had 2 servings. Oh wow. And we didn't tell him.
Go grab that and bring it out here, would you, Joanne? Kim and her husband just downsized out of a house into a 5th wheel. So she had all kinds of stuff that she needed to get rid of. So we have some of her stuff in the kitchen.
And those came from Brolem's.
Okay, came from Brolem's? Okay. TVP and tofu have that in similar, in that most people don't like tofu is because they've had it and it hasn't been seasoned with anything and it tastes like tofu. But tofu will absorb any flavor that you put with it. And so you can make it taste any way you want, which is and it's a great protein. This one is called Everyday Food Storage Beef TVP.
We have something to add about tofu back here. She gave an excellent suggestion.
Okay,
They were asking how to make it better, and if you're using just like regular firm tofu, I put mine in the freezer and then thaw it out and press all the water out of it, and it makes it really spongy, so it absorbs all the flavors a lot better.
which is what Glenna does and did with the tofu you ate tonight. So if you want it to really absorb the flavor, and you want it to have a little bit more chewy texture to it, you're gonna freeze it first. The recipe that, I had a recipe that I was trying, it absorbed too much. I tried a recipe for, and it's in your book, it's a lime, something lime. Ginger lime. And I froze it, I boiled it, I cut it in little blocks, I cooked it like they said to, and then I put the sauce on it, and I made the mistake of using regular soy sauce. Do not use regular soy sauce with that recipe, because it sucked it all in there and it was so salty I wouldn't feed it to anybody. Which is why you didn't get to taste that one tonight. I would have used tamari or else the low sodium soy sauce if you were going to do that recipe. It would be much, much better. Any other things? Is anybody interested in knowing how to make your own gluten? Because I know none of you, except like a few of you, have ever seen gluten made. It's a great protein, but it's a protein you also want to use somewhat sparingly because it's very concentrated protein, which is why you have those nice little pieces in your cacciatore. No? Yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you would like, that would be a good one if you did that one again? Okay. That's a good demonstration to show you the steps it goes through and how it cooks, because it's really kind of, it poops up big and it shrinks back down again. But that's a good one. Okay, I'll keep that one in mind. Monica was talking to somebody in the back about sprouting grains.
Oh, yeah. My girlfriend Regina is here, and she has been wanting to know how to sprout their own grains to make things like Ezekiel bread. It cuts down on the starches and the glutens in your grains, so it makes it easier to digest, and it like spikes the nutrition up. It spikes the nutrition up significantly when once those grains have sprouted. The fermentation or the sprouting process breaks down the phytic acid, so it makes the nutrients more bioavailable. It breaks the starches down, so it makes it easier on your digestive system.
So that may be something else that we'll put into a class. And if you come up with any others, you know where the website is where you found me the first time, and my name's in there. So just send me a message and say, hey, I was thinking I'd like to learn how to do this, and we'll figure out how to put it into a class.
What about, do you have a lot of experience making different types of non-dairy cheeses?
We did one on non-dairy cheeses, didn't we?
I've done cultured cheese.
She's done cultured cheese. I tend to do cashews.
That would be a good one.
That would be another good one to repeat.
I can teach you how to do rejuvelate. I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to speak up a little bit. We can cover things like rejuvelate. So it's an actual cultured non-dairy cheese.
That would be cool.
That would be nice.
Sounds like what's awesome. Man, I haven't done that in almost a decade. I need to get back in. I had babies.
Yeah, and I don't remember what happened when we did the cheese class, but you ended up not making the ones you were going to make for me. So
I think my babies ended up sick.
Yeah, I think the babies ended up sick. They're better now. They're doing better at not getting sick every time you turn around, which is really good.
Have you used microgreens in any of your recipes?
Other than quinoa, is quinoa considered a micrograin?
Why not?
No.
Well,
It's not. If it's,
Microgreen or grain?
Microgreens.
oh,
Green
microgreens.
sprouting.
I'm sorry.
I know what
Yeah,
quinoa
sprouting. Like sprouted.
I haven't.
is. It's kind of like sprouting.
Yeah, but you let it sprout until it has, actual plant. Yeah.
That would be something.
Okay.
It has great nutritional value.
Amazing nutritional value. Yeah.
She's my person who knows everything.
I'm still learning, so.
You say anything and she says, oh yeah, that does this, that, and that. Okay. Was there someone who is a visitor tonight who did not get a packet? Because I want to make sure that all the visitors, all our church members, I will print more for. But if there was someone else that did not get one, everybody got one? Okay, good. I'm going to turn it over to Monica. And when she's done, we will do the drawing for the books.
Sounds good.
You have 15 minutes, oh no.
Oh, what?
You said you had 15 minutes.
I have 15 minutes, okay. Okay, everybody good. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome, have no pressure.
You know me in cameras. So,
Just ignore him.
I will try. I'm Monica. There might be some people in here that might know me from Rigby Farmers Market. Okay, nobody, okay, no worries. So we're talking about sourdough. I've been baking bread for close to 20 years, but it's been artisan bread using commercial yeast. And the last couple of years, last year in particular, I had so many people coming to me, is your bread sourdough? And then walking away because it wasn't sourdough. So, and I had a lot of requests from people saying, hey, can you please transition everything to sourdough? So it kind of threw me into out of my comfort zone. But what I discovered is that your yeast is gonna do what it's gonna do. When you have a sourdough starter, and I was gifted a sourdough starter from somebody in the community, just a little bit, and it's a mature starter. I did not make my own. I was not brave enough this time. And not necessarily I wasn't brave enough. I have two little ones. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. In the last year and a half, 2 years, we have had to go completely chemical free. And as all of you know, when you look at the labels on your food, everything has chemicals. It has propylene glycol, it has phenoxyethanol, it has sodium benzoate, it has everything, or fake dyes, and they're allergic to it all. So it's thrown me into, we no longer buy commercial or store-bought bread. I make everything from scratch. And guess what? We're not making emergency room visits anymore. Woohoo! But that's also transitioned to how I do business and how I make my food and how I take, what products I take to farmers market. Sourdough being one of them. I've transitioned all of my recipes from using commercial yeast over to sourdough. And it's been really fun. We've been working on it since January. January? Yeah, January. And I've learned a lot, and I'm gonna say it's a lot easier than what a lot of the sourdough community, the experienced bakers, will say, but at the same time I'm coming at it from somebody who has almost 20 years experience. I've tried to screw this up, believe me. I've tried desperately to screw it up just to know how hard I can push my starter, how much I can tweak a recipe, how much I can mess with it, and it still turn out. I've had 2 flops, one of which I brought. I've broken almost every rule. I have just trying to screw it up. I've burned 2 loaves. as I figured out the temperature, because another thing people are discovering is when they move from places that are much lower elevation, your elevation and the temperature you bake at and the way your starter behaves is drastically different with your elevation changes. Because water boils at a lower temperature, at higher elevations, your bread bakes quicker, and it dries out faster because we have less oxygen and everything in the atmosphere, and we have a much drier atmosphere here. So it has changed, and I went from baking great loaves, and then when we moved, it was just crazy, and they were just bricks until I figured out it's the elevation. You've got to adjust for the elevation, you've got to adjust the moisture and all of that, and it's crazy how much that affects it. Okay, so starters. We will have the opportunity, if you want to take home some starter, we do have little jars, and you can, I brought extra starter, we can send you home with some starter if you want. If you want to try it. You don't have to. It's easy once you get the hang of it, but it's a lot of work, if that makes sense. And just as an example, this one here, I fed at 1 o'clock this morning. It was this full, and when I woke up this morning, it had peaked at 9 a.m. in a cold kitchen. So cold, and when I say cold, it was like 64 degrees in the kitchen, so fairly cold for a starter, and it peaked out, and then I used a whole bunch. So as the kitchen warmed up, and I started baking this morning, I fed this one, and that's where it was. In almost 2 hours, it had doubled, and a half an hour later, it had gone up more, and then an hour later, it had gone up some more, and I thought it had peaked out. But then it got a taste of the warm kitchen because I'm baking bread, and psych, it went clear up to there. And I thought it was going to overflow. This one I fed at 11:13 this morning, and that's the progress. And so when you're looking at recipes, it will tell you to feed your starter a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. Or there's everything from 1-to-1-to-1 ratios to 1-to-5-to-5 ratios. Everything in between. And that'll tell you, hey, if I have this much starter, as long as I feed double or the same amount of water and flour, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's going to do what it's going to do, as long as you're not starving it. It doesn't like to be starved. Yes?
She gave me a cup of starters, a cup this afternoon for me to use to make the pancakes. I've not ever worked a sourdough before. And I said, okay, so if I take this and I put in the flour and the water that the recipe tells me to, it says I'm supposed to have done it last night, it needs to sit 12 hours. She said, no. She says, go ahead and mix it like it says. She says, this is really good starter. She says, mix it. She says, put the bowl inside a bowl of warm water, keep the water warm, and it'll just grow. As long as it has the warmth, it'll take off. And it more than doubled in 2 hours.
Yeah, it takes off. And so when I say your starter's going to do what it's going to do when you feed it, and don't sweat it, and don't get all scientific and the exact measurements and everything, it's going to be fine. I mean it, 1,000%. It's going to do what it's going to do. Don't overthink it. You start scaring yourself out of trying sourdough, and you start scaring yourself out of being adventurous when you get caught in the numbers. Don't get caught in the numbers. And like she said, when you put it in, if you need to speed up the process, putting it in a bowl of warm water, it'll take off like crazy. The one thing I will say, and stress very, very heavily. Your lid goes on. Do not, under any circumstance, tighten that baby down. It will explode on you.
You look like you've had experience.
I have seen in the sourdough groups multiple posts every day of people who took their discard jar and filled it and cranked that down and put it in their fridge and opened the fridge within an hour or two, and it has exploded out the side of the jar and is now covering the inside of their fridge. So even, surprise! So even when you put your discard in the fridge, your discard is your extra. So every day you feed it, and then the next day when you dump out a little bit, so you're not just multiplying it exponentially. You can use that discard for things like making fresh pasta. You can use it for making pancakes. Crackers, mix in cheese and salt and spread it really thin and bake it, and you can make cheese crackers. You can mix in herbs and some salt and maybe a little extra flour to thicken it up, or sugar or honey, oatmeal, and just bake it to make fresh crackers. There's hundreds of ideas out there. Don't be shy, experiment. That's the joy of it all. So when you put your starter in the refrigerator, make sure that your lid, that your ring is not tight. If that's it, you want it to be able just setting down, like a half a turn, so that if something bumps into your jar, it doesn't knock the lid off, but that it has room to breathe, because it will. It'll grow. And I wouldn't recommend filling it past here, because I've topped it off to take the neighbor jar discard for pancakes, and it got warm and then overflowed, and cleaned it up, and it overflowed again, and like 3 or 4 times. It just keeps going once you stir it. So heads up. Lorraine, can you grab me the empty quart jar in there?
The one that I had earlier?
Yes, and I'll just show you guys. A kitchen scale is good for your bread recipes. It's good until you get the hang of when you mix your starter up. Until you get the hang of like what the consistency is, but it's not necessary for feeding your starter. 1 cup of water does not equal the same weight of 1 cup of flour. So be very, very careful with that. Huh? Nope.
Got one. Okay.
I brought my spatula.
Oh.
Also, having a backup is phenomenal. So when you finish feeding your starter, if you scrape this off into the jar and then you just leave it on top, that'll dry off. Have another clean jar with a lid, and when this is completely dry, break that off into that clean jar, and you've got a starter. When you need, if for some reason something happens to your starter, you have that jar of discard, and that's got enough of the healthy microbes in it that's dehydrated that you can rehydrate that, and you'll have a fresh starter. You'll have the same starter. Don't put it in your oven to heat it up or to keep it warm. I see all the time people baking their starter on accident, preheating the oven, and oh no, the starter's in the oven. Just don't do it. It's just not smart. Okay, so, this one, that was 9 a.m. 1 a.m. We're gonna do this one. This is gonna spend the longest. This is, I'm gonna show you the consistency. After feeding, that's what it's like.
It's like pancake batter.
Yeah, pancake batter. You can keep it at that. Or you can mix it a little bit thicker. Another thing, always use filtered water. There's microbes, there's contaminants in your tap water that can make funky things grow in your starter. Now this starter is strong enough, I would trust that you could probably get away with using tap water, but there's things like fluoride, it's neurotoxin, chlorine, it's not good, it's in your tap water that is, you just don't want in your bread. We've had to be careful of that. So you see where that is. We're gonna roughly double it. You can triple it, like I said. You can feed it. If I wanted to take that much starter and I wanted to put that much water in there, and then that, again, the weight in flour, I could totally do that, as long as you're not underfeeding it too much. Usually I have scoops for this and I forgot them.
Can you use whole wheat flour?
You can. There's more microbes in whole wheat flour if you're used to that chewiness. And if you find that your starter is weakening a little bit, adding a few tablespoons of whole wheat flour, there's more of the natural yeast in your whole grains than there are in your all-purpose flour.
Okay.